Hey, this is Chris, keeping it real, facts over fear. Got about halfway through the last last video, and my dog starts barking like it's the end of the world, and of course it was nothing. Um, Quickly, then, let's go to the notes. The formula is now the total number of two-dose vaccines, or those who are totally vaccinated, plus the number of confirmed cases, and I'm comfortable with that number, given what we're seeing in our graphs. The 14-day rolling average is below 400. It is now 389 for the first time since May 6, 2020. This is about half the figure noted at the beginning of June. Well, actually, it was May 28. Well, no, that is the beginning of June. I changed the number. I'm sorry. So it is about half of what it was just a little bit over 2 weeks ago, and that is great. Well, 17 days. I wanted to show you this graph down here of the cases on a 14-day rolling average. Notice how since about the second or third week in April, this graph it's gone linear, and there's a direct correlation between time passing and the number of cases being reported. They're decreasing in a linear fashion, which is really good. We notice it's tailing off a little bit here, but not too much. So that's good. That gives me high confidence that this data point here is good. That is the predicted end of the number of cases. Don't know if we'll ever get to 0 cases. Of course, if we do get to 0 cases, that would be totally awesome. I just don't know. I think if we were in a bubble, if North Carolina was in a bubble and we didn't let anybody in, we didn't let anybody out, we could get to 0, but this is the world and people travel. And until the whole world experiences these kinds of lower case numbers, I don't think we're gonna see 0 cases, but I think it will go down under 100 for sure. So North Carolina is effectively 50% immune and 66% on our way to herd immunity. That's about the same. The vaccine, well, we'll get to that in a minute. There's much talk of the Delta variant being more contagious, about 66% more so than the Alpha strain, but the only study linked on the CDC website is limited in scope and to my mind is inconclusive. So it's a very small study of household transmission, and I don't think that's real world enough to really say anything one way or another. And even the people who wrote the article admit that it is a very limited study, and you can't really draw too many conclusions from it. There's also talk of the Delta variant being more serious in terms of illness, but the only study linked on the CD website is not peer-reviewed yet. So if it's not peer-reviewed, it makes for some good reading, but until a lot of other scientists look at it and decide the methodology was good and that the authors have drawn valid conclusions, it's really just another piece of paper. I mean, you can look at it and see where the scientific community stands on some things, but that doesn't make an authoritative source of information. The vax averages remain steady but low, averaging about 100,000 a week for the last 4 or 5 weeks. The NC lottery for the vaxxed persons has not led to, if it ever is an increase in vaccinations, it's not showing up in the data yet. But keep in mind there is a delay in reporting vaccines of about a week or a week and a half. So it could be that it is having an effect, it's just not showing up in the stats yet. North Carolina dropped most mask requirements on May 14, 2021. So analysis. Why are confirmed cases on a downward trend? Well, of course, being 2/3 of the way to herd immunity, I would naturally depress the numbers, I would think. I'm not a statistician, so I don't know what that effect would be. If half the people can't get, which is what I'm essentially saying in this report, half the people can't get the virus, then is the remaining half, in other words, is 5 million people enough to keep the virus spreading? I would think so. But then again, I'm not an expert on viruses and statistics. I'm just putting together some charts and graphs so we can try to get a handle on what's going on. Number 2, it's summertime and people are not congregating indoors, and so we did see lower numbers last summer, although we were in lockdown of various sorts, and so we can't really compare this summer to last summer. There's too many variables are different, and so I don't know. I think in general, though, viruses are less active in the summertime, and it's not because it actually has an effect on the virus itself. It's just that the people who are carrying the virus are not getting together indoors in poorly ventilated spaces. Possibly, number three, possibly there's more natural resistance to the virus than we first thought. Some people are just not going to get this. Just because you got a virus out there doesn't mean everybody gets sick, unless it's a really awful one. So it could be that number is much higher. And the herd immunity figure might be much lower than 70%. Everybody's just kind of picked 70%. I think that's the number I see, the percentage I see most places when I read about the virus, but what if it's only 60%? What if this virus really just isn't as transmissible as everybody wants to make it out to be? I don't know. We'll see. So the outlook to confirmed cases will continue their rather substantial downward trend. Herd immunity date is now July 20th, 2021. Deaths will remain very low as most of the vulnerable population has either died, recovered, or been vaccinated. And remember, we can talk about these herd immunity projections all day long, but the only thing that really counts is the number of cases going to zero. When that happens, that's when we know we've got herd immunity. Then we'll know really what the herd immunity figure is within certain limitations. And so that's one thing you have to keep in mind when you're talking about these kinds of things. It's not like 70% is a hard number. It's like there's scientific analysis, and then there's real life, and those sometimes are two different things. I wanted to show you this graph here, the cases per the remainder to HI. In other words, last week, 2% of the people who are still able to become infected with the virus got the virus. So that's 2% of the 5 million people who were left. We can see it was much higher back at the beginning of the year. And then the curve comes down, and this is where the vaccinations started really starting to take off. We saw a rise of that percentage, and now it's going back down again, and so it will continue to go down. The number of deaths is now down to 3 people per day on a 14-day rolling average, which is great news. So less than 100 a month, about 90 a month, excuse me. Still not an inconsequential number, but compared to what it was, or compared to what it could have been, very, very, that's good news. That's all there is to it. All right, if you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the section below. Like and subscribe. We appreciate when you do, and we'll see you on the next fact-filled video.